have an 11-year-old, 9, 8, 2 3-year-olds, a 5-year-old, and a 1-year-old. Boom.
Okay, and you're pregnant.
Yes.
So are you pregnant? How many men?
How many baby daddies do I have?
Yes.
Child's fathers do I have?
Yes.
I have 4.
4. So you're currently pregnant and you have a 1-year-old. Is that by the same man?
Yes. No, the one that I'm pregnant by, I don't know who my baby daddy is. But
how do you not know who your baby daddy is?
See, it's a long story. I don't want to talk about it. It's embarrassing.
Last night, we were on Keep It 100, and we were basically talking about reviewing Marcus's interview with a soft life female and projecting the soft life. And I probably have to go back and listen to it, but he brought up the 7-year-old now relationship between Russell Wilson and Sierra, and also that triangular relationship between Russell Wilson, Sierra, and the father of her first child, which is Future. And the consensus always is that Russell Wilson is a corny lame that could not get women unless he had money, especially black women. And that Sierra chose him as a cleanup man and does not really desire him as a husband, that she really has this hunger for the ghetto thugged out Future, that has all the urban swag. Now, when it first came out that number one, probably wouldn't have any babies by Russell Wilson, where she had 2 more, or she wouldn't stay married to him. They'd be divorced within a couple years because Russell Wilson would get tired of her cheating with Future, and that Russell Wilson would quickly find out that he wasn't her type. And that persists even with Russell Wilson being way more successful than Future, her having 2 more children with Russell, and probably even a third with Russell. She's been so far happily married to Russell for the last 6 years. And no matter what status Russell has, because he is not swagged out and niggified like Future, Sierra secretly, in their minds, will always prefer somebody like Future. Said, look at her dating history. Even though Amari Stoudemire and a couple more dudes that are in there that are not Future's type, that are probably closer to Russell Wilson, they still believe that her type and the guys that she wants are closer to Future than it is Russell Wilson. Even though I demonstrated that her first boyfriend in high school is probably not the spitting image, but a prototype of Russell. Even her father is more of a prototype of Russell than Future is. But nay, they said, no, black women, and dare I say all women, prefer the urban, ghetto, swagged out dude like Future rather than a corny lame like Russell Wilson. No matter what his features, he does, his brown skin, his curly hair, the features that women love, especially black women. I know that because they do the skin, hair, and eye tests on black babies. And he would have been the preferred child, trust and believe, preferred child in most black women's circles as a baby. Trust and believe he would have. But that is not the reason I'm doing this, okay? The reason I'm doing this is that perception of what the culture is like is key. And what I'm saying is that in the 1960s, really in the 1950s, but in 1950s, 1960s, Kenneth Clark said as much. That is where the Tangle of Pathology actually came from. And this is something that I had to prove. I probably have to do another one because there's something that was even more clear than this about the difference between middle-class families, middle-class black families that they say were the majority back then, supposedly, versus the pathological urban culture that existed in the urban centers like New York, Cleveland, Chicago, St. Louis, and other places, right? So we're just going to read a little bit of this, and this is the whole thing. This is the comparison between a middle-class, upwardly mobile person that's supposed to, quote-unquote, integrate into American life, as they said that the Black American family was doing in the 1960s versus the pathological urban people, like the future represents. Okay, the dark ghetto is an institutionalized pathology. It is chronic, self-perpetuating pathology. It is the futile attempt by those with power to confine that pathology so as to prevent the spread of its contagion to the larger community. This is what Moynihan was saying in his The Negro Family, with the Tangle of Pathology, spreading to the larger community of what they call normal, or we call them square and lane, as they call Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is a square. In other words, he doesn't exhibit the tangle, the urban pathology that Clark and Moynihan was talking about. Not only is the pathology of the ghetto self-perpetuating, but one kind of pathology breeds another. The child born into the ghetto is more likely to come into the world of broken homes, does this sound familiar? And illegitimacy, and the family and social instability is conducive to delinquency, drug addiction, and criminal violence. Neither instability nor crime can be controlled by police vigilance or by reliance on the alleged deterring forces of legal punishment. For the individual crimes are to be understood more as symptoms of the contagious sickness of the community itself than as the result of inherent criminal or deliberate viciousness. Does this not sound like the vast majority of Black America today, including what we call the upper classes, the people that are rich? Brittany Renner, and Sierra with Future and Nick Cannon and his all his baby mamas. I can't tell you how many. We just had Kendra G interview a chick looking for a baby daddy. She had the nerve to have 7 children by 4 different men and have a baby on the way of who's the father she did not know the existence of. She did not know who the father of her 8th child was. And we have normalized this, but continuing. This relates to venereal disease, but I want to actually highlight this particular portion, right? The high rate of venereal disease in the ghetto among Harlem youth, for example, is 6 times as high as the city rate. On 110 for every 10,000. Harlem youth under 21 compared to 17.2 for the city as a whole is directly related to the patterns of family instability in the lower class Negro community. The systemic, vocational, and psychological emasculation, say it with me, emasculation of the Negro male and the reflection of these lower level of personal hygienic standards. The same can be said of the high incidence of illegitimacy in the Harlem, reflected to some extent in the ADC statistic. The emasculation, the systematic, vocational, and psychological emasculation of the Negro male. 1 in 10 of your boys can read a reading level. You have this constant pathological country actually criminalizing Black youth, Black boys. What do you think is going to be the result, right? This is the result. And this used to be the lower classes, right? As they deemed the lower 20%, the troubled 20-25%, the lower quarter, right? This has spread to represent the entirety of what we call Black ADOS culture. This represents ADOS culture. The ADOS culture is not represented by Russell Wilson. He is rejected as far as representing ADOS culture. Future, look at Future, man. Talking about lean, talking about Molly Percocet, talking about doing drugs. 8 baby mamas, or 9 baby mamas, I think, 8 and counting. 8 baby mamas by, and 8 different kids. And he is relegated as a hero in Black culture, in the Black pathology. 75% of women are unmarried. Okay, 75% of your kids are born out of wedlock. Let that sink in. The ironic status of the present continued neglect of ghetto children is found in the non-relevance of the community programs designed to prevent delinquents, and made even clearer by the fact that those who are judged as delinquents are seldom rehabilitated by society. Available data suggests that 9 out of 10 go back to the ghetto without any change in the conditions that sent them into rebellious antisocial behavior in the first place. What does that sound like? We revel in that. There's a lot here. These youth will have to learn eventually to function within the reality of a community if they are to lead effective lives. Even if the existing institutions were successfully rehabilitating their charges, that young person will still have to face the non-protective community after its release. Do we protect our children in the community? Can our children walk the streets without facing gangs and violence and drugs and all the ills? Okay. In the black community, these are our kids. Do they face that? They face that shit in New York, Chicago, Philly, LA? Nigga, when I was a kid, man, I had to walk through 3 gang territories just to get to fucking school. Okay. There was a bully on every block, and I was 6 years old, 5 and 6 years old. I had to go out there and face kids twice my size and twice my age. And nobody fucking cared. Okay, this is what they're talking about. Even if the existing institution was successful at rehabilitating their charges, the young person will still have to face the non-protective community after his release. Thus, the approach to the treatment of the battle neurosis in World War II, where psychiatric treatment was provided for disturbed soldiers at or near the front lines, is found to be significantly more effective than the previous approach of removing the patients far behind the battle line for treatment. In other words, you can take the Negro, especially the male and the female, out of the ghetto, but you never did do what? You never did any psychological work to actually get these people back in line, back to normal. And guess what happened? It perpetuated this. And all the crack era did, all hip hop did, was spread the pathology and made the pathology popular. It made the shit, our psychosis, normalized. And that's what you fucking see when you hear, on a daily basis, the Russell Wilson versus the Future argument. That is it. That is the Tangle of Pathology in its face. Okay? That's the Tangle of Pathology in real time. The Moynihan report and Clark was absolutely right. If you let the shit go, if you let the shit metastasize, it's going to affect the whole community. Now it's beyond help, okay? Because what you see, what was actually lower level, lower class ghetto behavior is now normalized, okay? Amongst all classes. You got rich chicks that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars being ratchet. You got billionaires being ratchet. It's so pervasive, it's all the way around the world. It's metastasizing all the way around the world. That thought, whole booty shaking behavior. They do this shit in the White House now. But you don't see white girl, you don't see most of the white girls out there doing this shit. You see it here and there because they want to be rebellious. You don't see them going to school doing this shit, but you probably will eventually. It's going to get there because this is the sickness that the Tangle of Pathology that Moynihan and Clark was talking about. It's normalized now to where Future is a hero. Nick Cannon used to be a square. When he was young, he was with Disney. He was a fucking square. Guess what he did? He tatted himself up. He's a baby Future now. He does the same shit that Future does. You got ratchet out rappers that can barely put 2 sentences together, because he's got a little bit of swag and he's tatted out. He's got 21 kids by 14 chicks, and we celebrate that shit. We celebrate that shit as normal. 20 years ago, 30 years, hell, back in the 60s, that was abnormal, that was actually shamed, that was looked upon and downcast upon, that you would do that shit and not marry the chick. Now it's normalized. So Future is now the face of what Clark and Moynihan call the Tangle of Pathology. Can't get around that. So anybody that wants to downgrade what Moynihan, what Clark, what Frazier said about this kind of shit, they can kiss my ass because it's there. And when I heard it last night, I said, bam, bam, there it is. And I respect Marcus. Marcus is a brilliant dude, but it's so insidious. And this stuff is so ingrained into the culture. You cannot remove this stuff. This is your culture now. So the baby mamas, the non-marriages, the out of wedlock births, you might as well forget it. Because at this point, all you can do is burn it down and start over. Because it is rotten through and through, from the top to the bottom. Hell, you got white people like Kim Kardashian making money off the same goddamn thing. Hell, you look at the Atlanta thing, right? No voting, right? You got a male, some of the most degenerate behavior that you actually going to see in any culture. exhibited on stage in a political commercial. And nobody says that they've gone too far. Your own women are supposed to hold up morality are dancing to it. This dude goes on concerts with Lizzo, and you got young girls dancing to this shit. What do you think is going to happen when these girls become 19, 20, 30 years old? You think that's going to go away? This Tangle of Pathology is worse than fucking COVID because it's 100% now. And so what used to be normal and square and upstanding and building families and building men and building women to actually build a community is gone. I'm convinced of it now. There is no rebuilding this community. It's over. What Clark, Monahan, and the rest were talking about, the Kerner Commission was talking about in 1968, guess what? That got overturned. It got stolen by white liberals, and it got co-signed by black liberals and black females. It's over. You can't come back from this. And all the young men that want to stay sane can do is bail out of this system, bail out of this black community. Okay, it's the only thing you can do, because you can't correct this shit. My God, like I was saying, there was no shame. You had a woman online on a dating show, and Kendra G did not have enough temerity to not take that call. The fact that she took that call, the fact that she put this out online, the fact that it is demonstrated that she had the nerve to get up there with 7 kids out of wedlock by 4 different guys, and the baby in her womb she didn't even know the father of. And if that's not shame, if we haven't gone too far, I don't know what is. And I'm a stomped down, hardcore, black nationalist, Pan-Africanist, right? I am a conscious community disciple. I am a freaking black Gnostic. I never, ever, ever, ever thought the black community would go this far. I'm sorry. You know what? Sometimes, man, I just want to close up shop and get the fuck out of here, man, because it's over, and I know it's over. Now, the only thing that I can do, what they said after the day after tomorrow, all I'm here to do is save as many as I can. And black people and the conscious community and black nationalists have the nerve to want black men, young black men, to come back into this goddamn forest fire and get burned alive by this shit. Come back into this vapid, disease-ridden community and actually get infected by it and do nothing. And then shame the people that had the remedies. Okay, you don't want the remedies because you don't want it to change. Okay, you're so used to this infected, disease, radioactive community, radioactive environment, and these radioactive and basically wanton women that you don't even want to do shit about it. And I am ashamed. I am literally ashamed. I'm ashamed of the conscious community. I'm ashamed of the nationalists. I'm fucking ashamed of the academics that would not fucking tell us the truth about this shit. They have shitted on Monahan and Clark and Frazier for the past 70, 80 years. And let this shit go down and see it right in front of their face. They're still writing about it like it's normalized. I ain't seen academics come out against Saucy Santana and the bully. I've seen a few masculinists actually say something about it, but the vast majority of, especially intersectional feminist academics, have not said shit about this because they reveled in the fucking decay. I'm fucking ashamed. Let me turn this off before I really go in, because I know something's coming when I actually put this up. Okay. But fuck it, I will take the hit on this, because as I was going through this, I was thinking about this kind of stuff. All this stuff came together. And if I have a channel, I'm going to, trust and believe I'm going to show more. I trust and believe I'm going to show more. Anyway, that's all I got for this one. It's BGS out. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.